Happy New Year. I'm glad to see everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this bright and early, what day is it? Thursday. Thursday, I'm sorry. Everything is kind of a blur a little bit. But welcome everyone to the Ad-Hoc Committee for Housing, Construction, and Development Services. Today is January 16th, 2020. We've had so far a very productive week. Some of you may have already heard, you may have already been there on Tuesday. We've allocated over $20 million for affordable housing development. Yay! Yay. Congratulations to everyone that made that happen. Thank you so much. Our city very much needs that investment. Good morning, Raul. And Councilmember Deb Davis won't be joining us, so I'll just quickly mention our committee members. Raul Perales is here, Councilmember Pam Foley, Councilmember Maya Esparza. We do have a quorum, and we're going to get started. There are no items to be added or dropped or deferred on our work plan. And there are no items under our consent, so we'll jump right into our reports. Hi, Rosalind, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Carrasco and members of the committee. Rosalind Huey, Director of the Department of Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement. We're glad to be with you. This morning, we have our standing agenda items. The first item will be Development Services Transformation Update, followed by an update on our ADU program, and then lastly, we'll have an update on our housing production numbers. I'm joined this morning by a whole host of team members. As you know, Development Services involves many, many departments, so we have all of our partners at the table, including Public Works, the Fire Department, Building Division, Housing Department, and Office of Economic Development. So we want to pick up from what we shared with you in our last meeting in November. As you know, our big milestone for last year was the upgrade from the Amanda 6 to the Amanda 7 platform. And that really was a huge feat for us. We worked on it for several months and prioritized that work. But that really was the first step in our development services transformation. So with the new platform and new servers, that now sets us up for new technologies that will improve the experience of our customers. So as we look now forward into 2020, we've done a little bit of regrouping and reprioritizing on the key items we're going to focus on, including the structure of our team. As you know, for the last year, Matt Lush has served as product owner for the Integrated Permitting System program, and he has done a tremendous job leading the team, and we're very thankful for his work. You may know that, when you do a great job, you get promoted to do more work. So Matt is now Assistant Director in the Department of Public Works, and we congratulate him for that. So with those new duties, he needs to focus on that new position. So we have now decided to bring on a new product owner. To my left is Alex Powell. Some of you may not know Alex, but Alex has been with Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement for about 7 months. He serves as the Department Chief of Staff, and really his primary role is to execute the work plan for the department, but he has also become very involved in development services transformation. He's been working with the team since he's been on board, and he has graciously accepted the new role of product owner. So I want to introduce him to you, and he'll be part of the presentations moving forward. In addition to Alex coming on board as product owner, we have extended the team to include new members from departments that are going to be involved as we continue the work moving forward, and you can see those names on the right. And I want to mention that many of our team members are in the audience this morning. So as we now move forward into 2020, prioritizing the work ahead of us as we move from the new platform, we have prioritized items for the calendar year. You can see those items listed to the left. They include a fully integrated electronic plan review, so electronic plan review integrated into the new Amanda system. Upgraded public portal, you'll be hearing more about that in the presentation, and that is a very key component for our customers. We'll be doing work around digital inspection. We'll continue new workflows in Amanda for our departments and development services. We'll continue to focus on performance measures, process improvements, particularly around CEQA. We'll do continued improvements around our ADU permitting process. And later in the presentation, we'll be sharing you with the idea of developing a technology fee to support the new technologies that we've brought on board. Next, Alex is going to share how we've done on our OKRs for the last quarter.
Yes, as Rosalind mentioned, my name is Alex Powell. I'm with Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement. Before we go into our full 2020 plan, we talk about the work that we expect for the next year. We should reflect on the work from the last quarter. So I'll present on the status of our OKRs from Q4. I do want to recognize Matt Lesh, who presided as product owner over these OKRs, so don't want to take credit. Thank you, Matt. Starting from, as an overall message, you could see that we did a great job of accomplishing our OKRs this quarter. For the fourth quarter, we really focused on the particular OKRs that we needed to accomplish, particularly around getting Amanda 7 up and running and getting our staff ready for that. There were a couple of red and one yellow OKRs. Many of the other green OKRs we will discuss in subsequent slides. The first on the left-hand side is the online fee and permit estimator contract signed and project initiated. This was a project and a contract that we got up to as close to completion as we possibly could and held off due to the projects that we were looking at in the 2020 year. So that previous slide that Rosalind presented on the projects that we were looking at, this is now a project that we have on deck. It is ready to get going, but we have focused on the core technologies that build off the success of Amanda 7. So that is the reason for that red OKR. The second red is hire and contract fill 2 out of 3 fire development service vacancies. We'll go in more detail in a couple of slides on that one. And finally, to present on the yellow OKR around ADUs, we will actually have more details about this in the ADU portion of the agenda. But overall, this was a stretch goal. We missed it by a little bit. We'll discuss more, but we're recommitting our efforts on ADUs, and we're going to have an OKR for Q1 2020 that we'll present later as well. The rest of them, of course, are green, and we're happy about the success. Again, due to the focus that we had and the attention that we paid, it's not overwhelming with OKRs. Our attention was dedicated to these efforts, and we'll talk about more of these in a minute. But again, as Rosalind mentioned, to reflect on the success from 2019 and the success that we had in going live with Amanda, we're very pleased from of the team's effort in this year. If we think back from where we were a year ago, of course, preceding my time here with the city, but we are trying to work on so many different initiatives with any major milestones. This team came together, really focused on Amanda 7, and again in November when the system went live, it was an acknowledgement of that we actually are accomplishing something. We are making strides forward and getting this work done, and they set a real standard for what we expect in the future. So for that, I again want to thank the staff that are here in the room, the staff that are signing up for this work in the year ahead. I think at a base level, we really appreciate sort of the way that we've come together, the way that we're working, and it really identifies a clear path forward in how we're going to get this work done. So now, Chief Estrada will present on the fire vacancies.
Good morning, thank you, Committee. So, at the beginning of the quarter, you can see from the left to the right, we had a total of 16 budgeted associate engineer positions. We carried 3 vacancies at that time in that class. So the hiring environment for us was very, very dynamic during this period, and I'm going to give you some context into what we were doing, how we got there, and essentially what the end result was. So as a reminder, our goal was to hire or contract fill 2 out of 3 development services vacancies. And while we added staff, we also lost staff in the associate engineer positions and others. So that had a big impact on our end result and our overall success. We had opened the associate engineer hiring process before this OKR started earlier in the year, and the existing MQs with those and the results, we felt it unlikely that we would be able to attract new permanent employees, so we really focused on temporary staffing and people that could fill those positions, mainly through retire, rehire, and peak staffing. And so the easiest way to describe the overall movement is to consolidate the net wins and those net losses. So that's what I've done on this slide. The additions, so we successfully onboarded 3 people. We had 2 retire rehirees that came back and 1 peak staffer, so 1 contractor on board. The problem is they were all part-time employees, so we basically got a net of half a person each one, so 3 times the work, 1.5 people. And that still left us basically half or 0.5 short of our initial goal, so we were very close there. The losses. We had 1 promotion from associate engineer to senior engineer, and this was a process that was underway. We were trying to fill 2 of our manager positions, and it was great that we were able to fill some, but we did lose someone from the associate engineer workforce. The higher class, we had 2 senior engineers resign during this period, so that left us in a position where we needed oversight, and we had to we were able to select a person to higher class them, so we had another net loss in the associate engineer workforce. So to summarize, we lost a couple of full-time employees that had an impact on the associate engineers, and that gave us essentially the 2 positions that you see in the downward arrow. At the end of the quarter, we fell short of our goal for temporary staff by half or 0.5. We added also 1 associate engineer position that was loaded through a new request. So once again, we had 16 associate engineers at the beginning, 17 associate engineers at the end, and we ended up with really moving from a vacancy rate of 18% to 26%. So we really tried to figure out how to creatively fill these positions, but we were unable to keep up with that churn. So, next slide, please. So, an action plan before the OKR period started was initiated by the Bureau, and in our efforts to address the challenges faced by the Bureau, they break into 3 categories: people, process, and technology improvements. And we initiated short, medium, and long-term actions that would deliver a likely result in either the 1 to 3 month time frame, 3 to 6, or 6 to 9 month time frames. And I'll focus on those that were pertinent or relevant to the OKR. So first, in the short-term category, we cross-train staff in order to create positions so that we can backfill with some of the temporary, like the peak staffers or some of the retiree hires that were available. We also used PBCE's master agreement in order to use contract employees. In the medium category, we were able to work with AEA and Local 230 in order to modify the side letters so that we can bring on 2 additional retirees, and you saw that in the previous slide. And on the long range, this is where the big changes that we're hoping for to have a really big effect for us. We have a class study that's going on for the associate engineer position that had stated goals and objectives to review the class, the duties and the responsibilities of all positions filled and vacant, to recommend structure and allocate positions for new or revised classes and compensation. So that started in September. We ended our portion of it for the elicitation phase in December, so we're awaiting the results now. We also drafted an RFP that was a fire-specific RFP for peak staffing that really fits our needs and our goals and lets us be more flexible. And we cross-train staff, and we continue to cross-train staff to be more responsive and be able to address the immediate needs to match the workforce. So in doing this, we actually made some assumptions, and one of them was that the workforce would be stable. We found that this was not the case. We did continue to lose people. So we also felt that the qualifications of the applicants, that the MQs would provide a qualified and ready workforce. We found that when we are addressing what items in that actually kept us from seeing some of the people that we wanted to. The contract employees for retiree hires, we figured we would be able to find them, but they're also part of the workforce, and we're pretty much at full employment, so we found it a little bit challenging, although, as noted in the previous slide, we were able to find 3 people. So lessons learned. We really need to focus on retaining staff while we're trying to attract new permanent staff, and we found that this is an essential, this is very critical for us. The competitiveness in this job market that we are in is something that I think is important to keep our focus on, and we have aggressive recruitment from our neighbors, and in order to be competitive, we need to be essentially competitive with those neighbors. And we have lost staff, but it's not just about the square mileage of the city or the population or the number of high-rises, it's about who we're actually losing people to. So in the classification, we're hoping to see that cities like Milpitas, Santa Clara County are included. So that's who we're actually losing staff to. And another important consideration is basically the churn, so those folks that we're leaving who are still in the middle of their careers. So we're going to pay close attention to that, and we're going to start following basically and figure out what our vacancy rates are so that we can hopefully provide any kind of insight into what it is that we need in order to be successful. So that pretty much that kind of describes where we were and how we tried to address it. We do have one more retiree hiree that has been identified, but so we were really close in the net wins. Unfortunately, we were outpaced. So, and we're going to continue. We're looking forward to the class study to come back and hopefully help us fix some of these gaps that we have.
Thank you, Chief. So one of the new ideas we wanted to introduce to the committee is establishing a technology fee for development services. And really, the purpose of it is really to create a sustainable funding source to maintain our new technology. So what we find here in the city is that many times we establish and find the resources to do major upgrades to our technology, but then we don't have a plan in place to sustain that new technology and maintain it over the long term. So what we want to introduce is an idea to do that, so we don't find ourselves, say, 5 years from now, scrambling to maintain our new infrastructure. So we've actually are working with Management Partners, our consultant who has actually helped us in creating fees around development services previously. That work is currently underway to determine what permits that this technology fee could be applied to. We do want to note that we are using best practices from across the state and really throughout the country. So there are many cities throughout California that have a technology fee on their permits, and that includes Sacramento, Palo Alto, San Francisco, and Oakland. So we are looking at those best practices to see how this fee could be applied here in the city of San Jose. So as I mentioned, the work is underway. We are tying this to, obviously, the new budget proposal for 2021. And so we will be presenting and bringing forth this work this spring as part of the budget timeframe. Next, Erica is going to share about our work around performance measures.
Good morning. Erica Graffo with the Office of Civic Innovation. Last committee meeting, we previewed 3 performance measures that we're going to begin measuring. As a reminder, those are highlighted in yellow. So number 1, speed, how quickly projects are moving through the permitting process. Number 2 is throughput, the volume of permitting activity over a period of time. And number 3, ease of use, how easily can both customers and staff complete the application process. Within each of these performance measures, we're proposing a handful of metrics to report. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but last quarter we developed baseline data for these metrics. we're not ready to make the data public just yet. That will happen this quarter. We know that you're eager to see the data, and we want to share it too. But we found some errors with the reporting that we really need to iron out before we broadcast those metrics. One other point before I finish, instead of measuring the entire universe of customers, we're focusing first on monitoring performance for a couple key customer groups, and you see those at the bottom of the page. The first is what we're calling high-impact projects. These are projects with significant impact to either housing or commercial development. Next are those we're calling low-effort projects. And these are projects that we're monitoring to reduce staff time and increase ease of use so that we can redirect our precious resources onto some of the more impactful work. And lastly, ADUs, because they're our favorite. And we'll continue to, one of our favorites. And we'll continue to monitor and report on our progress related to the accessory dwelling unit process improvements. So we'll be working this quarter to continue to QC the data and the dashboard with a goal of releasing the public-facing dashboard by the end of the quarter. So now I'll turn it back to Alex to review the full slate of Q1 OKRs.
So finally, we'll talk about the road ahead and what we're looking to accomplish in Q1 of 2020. This plan is to build on what Rosalind presented before on our full 2020 plan, and is what our aims are to accomplish in the first 3 months of this calendar year. So first, on the far left side, the digital user experience. We have one dedicated goal around getting the new online permitting portal to 90% user acceptance testing completed. This would put it close to the goal line for launching the portal sometime in Q2. So we think it's a little bit of a stretch, but that's one of our key initiatives for this first quarter. In the second column around effective process, first, as Erica mentioned before, we will publish the performance measure dashboards on speed, throughput, and ease of use in the first quarter. And then around general process improvements, again, as mentioned before, the ADU permits, we're recommitting to that target, going from 60% in the last quarter and moving it up to 65% as the team continuously evolves and improves its processes. We'll also develop a City of San Jose CEQA instructional guide for the Environmental Consultant Roundtable. We're so pleased that this OKR was green to launch the Environmental Consultant Roundtable. Now we want to set up standards so all those new consultants to the roundtable know the way that we work to make sure that they're all using the same effective process. And then finally, for process, as Fire spoke about before, we're no longer going for 2 out of 3 fire vacancies, but shooting for 5 out of 5, recognizing that this is an important initiative. 2 out of 3 doesn't cut it. 5 out of 5 is really what we need to be effective. In the third column around strong collaborative team and preparing for the future, we have one OKR around finalizing the technology fee study recommendations. The report should be ready shortly after the first quarter, but the recommendations we should have a good understanding of by the end of this quarter. And in the last column around internal tools to enable teamwork, this is around our Amanda workflows and again, electronic plan review. So our first is design and build 2 electronic plan reviews and workflows that will mostly be used internally before an external launch. And then also for our building inspectors, we will also be developing a digital inspection MVP prototype. This will take their paper-based process that they have out in the field of recording their findings in the field to a digital one that they could use iPads for and integrate those findings in the document that they'll use on, the inspection prototype that they'll be using on their iPads to integrate with our Amanda permitting system. MVP is a minimal viable product. So we'll sort of test and iterate on the initial prototype for a full launch later. Thank you. Our second to last OKR developed two new Public Works Amanda workflows. To get the Amanda 7 launch to happen on time, there were a few workflows that we had to delay to make sure that we did not delay that go live. And we're completing the remainder of those in this calendar year, starting with Public Works, and then our final OKR around the Fire Amanda workflow. So that's our target for the first quarter, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you so much, and that was a lot. But of course, it's a very extensive program that you all have been undertaking, and we don't mean it except for every 3 months. So a lot of information for you to come back with, and a lot for us to digest. I'm going to turn to my colleagues. I know that Councilmember Foley, you have questions.
I do, and first I will move to accept the report.
Thank you.
And then I first want to congratulate Matt on your promotion and welcome Alex to your new job. So look forward to working with both of you in your new capacities. I have some questions regarding the hiring. Chief, what's the number one, this is a priority, so I'm very concerned about the timing that it takes now to get an inspection completed. Can you tell me how the lack of staff resources, lack of staff, let's put it that way, is affecting delays in inspections? What does that look like from a project standpoint?
So, thank you for the question. In terms of project, we have really 3 different disciplines, and those are broken into 2 different categories. So we have both the first part, which is looking at the plans, making sure everything's okay, and that's the plan review process. And then we have the inspection, which is the field portion. Depending on the project, its size and complexity, it can take anywhere from half a day to 5 days to go through the plan check. And then also, it depends on whether it's an alarm system or it's a sprinkler system. Those also are variables. Then there's the inspection. So larger buildings, more complexity, more floors, require sometimes multiple inspections. And we're finding that the difficulty is we were able to flex and cross-train and move people into some of those. So life safety and fire alarm systems are easier to fill, and we've actually made progress on those. So we brought life safety down to 2 days. You can get one within a day or 2, inspection that is. You can, within 2 weeks or 10 business days, you can get an alarm inspected. The difficulty remains with sprinklers. This is the most difficult to fill and also the most detailed work that there is, and this is where we're having our challenges. So we've tried to address it with cross-staffing. The problem is that in order to make those improvements in those areas that we could, we've pretty much exhausted our resources. So unless we get more people, and this includes the ability, because electronic plan check and any vendor that would provide services for us, so contractors, those are almost all in-house now. They have these distributed workforces. To get somebody to physically come in is very difficult to find. I was only able, out of 3 different vendors, to find really 1 person for 2 days a week. So that's a challenge, and that's where our desire to have our own fire master agreement so that we can move to more of a service-based if we need to flex up or have time. So that's one need. Then there's the use of retirees. Because we're losing people and they're working somewhere else as opposed to leaving the city and available, that workforce is also not available. And then we do have difficulty in hiring. So we're finding that the people that we're losing are citing compensation. They're busy and they're working very hard, but that doesn't seem that's not the thing that's driving them away. We have a lot of people who've left the city, and they already know the water's fine on the other side, and they're friends. So they're recommending positions and jobs, and they're trusted sources that are reliable to my employees, and they're taking that, and they're basically looking elsewhere. So they don't need a lot to stay, but they do need something, and I think that if we take a really close look at both the compensation package and then also the ease in hiring, because I'm finding that the lag time between making a request to get someone and having it actioned, or having, because of also the shortages in HR, everybody's very busy. So this is an understandable challenge that we all have to deal with, but it still does take a long time, which could take several months to hire someone. And then in the case that somebody does look like they could do the job with a little bit of extra training and actually fill one of our seats, in those cases, to be able to actually have an opportunity to see them so an equivalency in the hiring process could be helpful. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but it raises more questions. So you mentioned compensation as one issue and ease of hiring as another. It seems to me that ease of hiring might be easier for us to deal with from an HR standpoint. It's taking several months from the time you tender an offer from the time until we hire. What's standing in the way of that?
Well, from when something's opened up, it's just the normal process for the whole process to take effect. So essentially, when we request a position to be filled, it to be opened, it opened for the appropriate amount of time. So every segment, not all of which fall under the city's responsibility, there are certain things that have to happen. So it could easily take a couple months, and then if there's a back and forth with the employee, and then the lead time also includes how long it is until from the acceptance to the time that the person actually comes on board. We had one person that asked for 2 months. So that's part of it. So not all of it is the city's to do. Some of it is just the process.
And aside from compensation when they're going to a neighboring jurisdiction where their friends are working, is it workload that they are concerned about? Is it upward mobility within the department? What kind of things, are there other things that we can be looking at to increase the attraction for them to stay with us? Because sometimes it's not just compensation. It's the job that they're doing, it's how many hours they're putting in. This conversation sounds very similar to the 911 dispatch operators that we're having, but it's important that we get a handle on it and resolve it, and it doesn't feel like we're there yet. So is there other things besides compensation, workload? Did I mention them already?
I think you covered most of them. Like I said, the workload is definitely one of those things that is being cited, but I don't think it's the primary thing. But that's my opinion, so I'll stay away from that. Yeah, it's really workload. There is opportunity and there also, and it's compensation. So those three, I'd say, are the most common that I hear.
Okay. All right, thank you.
If I could
look
add in
forward to
just-
the study.
If I could add in just
Yeah.
a little bit from the city manager's office perspective, I really appreciate the chief's candor on this one. This is clearly a really big pain point for us right now. And so very much aligned and trying to support the chief and the fire department on this. I would say there are a couple of things to add into what the chief has said. One is we've just finished the class and comp study, I think, like last week. So we'll be reviewing that with HR. We'll be taking this very seriously. Part of the difficulty and the speed of hiring is that our hiring model with a department like fire is decentralized. So a lot of the hiring work is actually not on HR, it's with them. So
Okay.
they have this double impact of, oh, I've got to provide all these services in the field, and I've got to hire the positions. And so you get this kind of vicious cycle of the workload goes up. They've got the same people we're trying to get out in the field are trying to do the hiring process. And so we're looking at all of that. We believe the fundamental crux of the issue is getting enough people into those positions who are highly qualified with the right tools. And that's going to be a combination of looking at compensation, looking at how many people are needed, and also giving the right investment in technology tools. And so this is not a small lift. We have some very good people in the organization, but they're going to require a lot of support, I think, from all of us. And so we'll be bringing forward some recommended changes over the next several months with this, and maybe bringing things back to your consideration through the normal budget process and other means. So this, of all the things that we've got going, which are important, this is probably the one which is the biggest and most painful bottleneck. And I know that the people in the field are feeling on a day-to-day basis this impact, everywhere from the big projects to the smallest. So I'm sure you're hearing about it. We are too, and we're taking it very seriously.
Okay, that really helps. Thank you very much. I look forward to the results of the study. That actually leads me into the technology fee. What do you, I really hate to see fees added yet again into our development as a potential impediment to more development. So when you raise the term technology fee, what does that look like? Well, I assume the developer pays for it, but Can you give me more background on what that might look like and when that might be paid?
Sure. So we are looking at adding a percentage to various types of building permits, and this would be across all permits. So it would impact like our large development or large developer customers, as well as homeowners who come in for a single-family home permit. So I'll give you an example. And this would affect, excuse me, our ADUs customers as well. So for a single-family home permit, we are estimating that the additional cost, so this fee would amount to about $50 to $100 on the permit cost. So that's a pretty nominal fee. On larger projects, that would just grow proportionately. But we will, this is the work that's underway in terms of what is the additional amount that would be applied to each permit. And that's what we're working with management partners to identify now.
And if I could add just a little geek out portion of it, part of what we'll separate too or think about is the difference between what's just the ongoing technology operations of day-to-day business as usual versus what is needed to invest in a technology transformation. And I think at some point, you've raised the implicit, and I'll make it explicit question of who pays that, and is that a burden on development? And I think that we'll bring back the technology fee in discussion in a way that allows that conversation to happen. But part of what we haven't allowed ourselves to bring to you before is what does it really take if you want to create a modern platform and a modern customer experience? And so how that is paid and who pays that, I think, is a very legitimate conversation, political conversation for you all to debate and decide on. But I think what we don't want to do is short-circuit that by saying, oh, it's expensive, so we don't want to bring it forward because it's a development fee. So I think separating those two issues out a little bit, we want to bring you back information on here's what it's costing for business as usual. Here's what it will cost probably over a 2 to 3 year period to do a transformation and deliver the expectations of Silicon Valley experience. And then how do we want to pay for it with the technology fee being one option?
Thank you. So that indicates to me that with the Silicon Valley option, that if we improve our technology, that it should improve the speed, and for developers, time is money. So I can see a conversation around, okay, if this is going to take me less time to get this project developed, from start to finish, I'm going to save this amount of money. But that argument has to be made, and we have to be convinced that that's accurate. So that's the key to me, is the time is money component as it relates to the developers in the audience and those who are not here.
Correct, and I don't think anybody is going to be satisfied with some vague, we're going to make it better. I think you need to be able to commit and deliver on metrics that show that the reason that you need a lumpy upfront investment is to make efficiencies that over time actually reduce the cost for the customer as well as the internal. But we've got to be able to put that business case forward and then hold ourselves accountable, just as we have done with the objectives and key results.
Okay, I absolutely agree. And Rosalind, before you started talking, I wrote down ADUs, do they apply? And you then said the word ADU, so that raises a whole different concern, because we're trying to make those the lowest, more affordable homes that are quickest to implement. And if we add more fees, are we going to then put up more roadblocks for ADUs? And then what about those who we have just agreed to give to grandfather in amnesty for fees in one case because of the work they're going to do to get their units permitted? So I look forward, I know you don't have those answers yet, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness, but I just want to emphasize that if we are improving efficiencies and making it quicker for projects to get approved, that's going to be an interesting conversation, and I hope we can be held accountable for that. And also, I would encourage you to involve the developer community in your conversations around those fees.
Absolutely. Actually, outreach to our development community as well as our smaller customers is included in the scope of the work, and we'll be doing that this winter.
Okay. Then I have a question for you regarding the review cycle. How long, it's currently taking around 3 review cycles for an ADU, 2 to 3. we want to get it to 2. How long is the cycle?
So actually, the next portion of our agenda is an update on ADUs, and we'll be getting into those specifics.
Good, then I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you. I also wanted to talk about the fire inspections a little bit. So I heard what you said, but I wanted to convey my own concerns about this moving forward. And we had a pilot that had been, from what I hear, had been working and providing the response that developers needed to move projects forward. And then, from my understanding, that was stopped, and now we're trying to figure out more solutions. And so I look forward to seeing the results of the class and compensation study as well, and hearing that moving forward, because we really need to find ways to support the people that we have now and use them better, in addition to hiring the 5 out of 5. The other point I wanted to make about the technology fee was I'm actually pretty excited about this, given sort of our starts and stops on the technology in this area. And so to me, this indicates sort of a long-term thinking about infrastructure and our ability to deliver in a timely way. And so I echo my colleagues' comments about incorporating feedback from the developer community, so it's very clear to them what they get in return for these fees. Because I would suspect that they are very eager to have us be more efficient in this regard. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that come back to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Perales.
Just one point to add to that. I'm curious, Chief, if the staff that we're losing, my understanding, for the most part, are retirees, correct? Not resignations? Or, so it's kind of people retiring and then going to another department?
The staff we've lost recently have all been people who went to other AHJs or other jurisdictions.
But
So
they
none
left
of them
on a
retired.
They left on a resignation then?
Yes.
Okay. My understanding was that maybe there was retirees retiring out and then going into other departments. That's happening too, correct? But, and that's why we have a shorter pool of maybe retirees to look at. But the staff you're talking about that we've actually lost were recruited to another department and they resigned here.
Correct.
Okay.
That's since I've been here, which is, we're approaching a year now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of points. Also, I wanted to congratulate Matt on your new endeavors.
I just describe it as a PO upgrade, but that's okay.
And of course, welcome Alex to this position, and careful what you wish for. But this is I think these are wonderful positions, and you've done such a great job already. So we look forward to this next chapter, and a lot of work to be done as we're hearing this. Councilmember Foley already touched on a lot of the issues that I had, as well as Councilmember Esparza. My biggest issue in terms of, whenever you hear fees, everybody's red flags and antenna go up. And I think having clarity and transparency is of paramount. And especially as folks are investing in the city, we need to make sure that everyone is very clear if it's coming, if it's going to hit their pocketbook again, that they are on board. And so making sure that they are at the table when these decisions are being made. They need to be included in that conversation. And I know that you'll do a great job in terms of making sure that our stakeholders, our developers, our investors are definitely engaged in that conversation. I don't want to get those phone calls of individuals who are half panic-stricken because now suddenly their projects have gone up significantly, and they are having second thoughts about whether or not they're going to continue to invest in the city of San Jose, especially as we are all very well aware of the kind of crisis that we're dealing with, but I'm sure that some folks are going to say, I will pony up, because if this helps me get things through the pipeline anytime faster or more consistently, I will go ahead and take care of it. Some might not be so thrilled about it. I don't know. I'm just assuming. More to come, I'm sure, and I look forward to that conversation. My concern is the recruitment and retention of our staff. That just is an issue that we're having across the board in every single department. What I'd like to know is whether the issue is also at HR level. Because I thought I heard you say that once they're coming through, something is getting hung up in HR because of staffing levels at HR? Or is it the process? So let's distinguish, is it staffing or is it process?
I was referring to just the overall process, but it was the
Overall
entire
process.
process. I don't know what the staffing situation is in HR, but I know that they are fully burdened as well.
But they're also fairly burdened.
They're busy.
Yeah, okay, so it's just a systemic problem throughout our entire organization. Just wondering how we cease all communication between cities. And because, what do we do to sever those
build a
relationships?
wall.
Damn it, it's like those relationships between people, because I know now that these individuals left, I'm sure they're gonna say, it's nice over here, right? The grass is always greener. It is not, folks, yeah.
So to that point, just a little bit of the experience on a similar issue. I wanted Rosalind to kind of weigh in.
Sure. So we had similar experience in the planning division in terms of retaining our staff. We had a vacancy rate at the end of last summer at 44%. It's crazy, it's almost half. So thankfully to the council that approved the restructuring and increase in the citywide planning fee, we were actually able to create new positions, and we did extensive outreach to the development community. I mean, this is one of the things that we're so fortunate here in the city of San Jose, is that our stakeholders, our customers, they are willing to pay more money in order to get better service. And over the years, they have indicated that their willingness to do it. They've been great advocates. So they were actually very supportive of increasing that citywide planning fee. So as a result, we got new positions. We were able to actually, since late August of last year, we have hired 14 new planners. So that means we have this huge capacity to review planning permits now. So the vacancy rate has dropped from 44%, we're down now to 9%.
That's amazing.
So we're going to use a similar approach and level of focus to what we did with planners, to what we're looking at with the inspections. That included looking at compensation. That included how do we support the department in hiring. All of those things. Again, they'll require a lift on all our parts, and we'll come back to you with those decisions that we need your support on.
Thank you. A quick technical question regarding planners and inspectors. What is the baseline educational level?
So generally, our main classification for planners is the classification is called Planner 1, 2, 3. And generally, the minimum requirement is a bachelor's degree. For our senior planners, planning supervisors, we require a master's degree.
And that's bachelor's in?
In urban planning, it could be in design. We actually, we've hired planners that have a background even in business administration, public administration, because planning is the field that we can attract folks from different subject areas. But generally around planning, development, urban design, public administration.
Okay.
In the Bureau, our associate engineers require an engineering degree, so it could be one of several disciplines, but it's typically that. And then senior engineer, there's some additional qualifications that are necessary, and a number of years as an associate.
And do we do any sort of job fairs ever with like San Jose State, De Anza, City College, to let them know what our departments do? And do we have internships available?
So yes and yes from the planning department. So we're very fortunate. We have a good relationship with the urban planning program at San Jose State University. And many of our new planners come from San Jose State. I don't know the numbers currently, but several of them do come from San Jose State and other nearby universities. We also offer internship programs. We have one of our star planners today actually started as a planning intern and is now a supervising planner and has been with the department probably 5 years. So the internship program is very helpful as well.
We currently have no interns, and as far as job fairs, since I've been here, I'm not aware that we've participated in anything like that.
Okay.
We also had just one outreach opportunity that we, and then now we're in the class today, so we're definitely looking at being way more proactive about outreach and trying to figure out, really, we're learning on other people's line what's working, so
Yeah.
we've had some conversations about
Yeah.
that as well.
Thank you. You know,
I would just add, just in terms of recruiting planners, so we found that working with professional organizations is also helpful. So in the planning field, there's the American Planning Association, the Urban Land Institute, and other professional organizations that we partner with as well.
Thank you so much for that. And the fact that we have San Jose State just across the street, what a wonderful resource. I don't know of any other city where its government building is directly across, a learning institute like what we have here. So we have a great resource that we should take full advantage of. But what I also had in mind was just the thought of partnering, maybe once a year with one of the largest high school districts, which is Eastside Union High School District. It's the largest high school district in Northern California, and to be able to offer opportunities that they may have never even considered before, which is to be part of the growth of a city that of course we're going to be seeing, grow exponentially. But anyway, so thank you so much. Any other questions, comments? I know we have a motion on the table. With that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously for those who are here. Thank you so much for that report. More to come. Thank you. Moving on to our ADU process enhancement update.
Chair Carrasco, I just want to make sure, before we move to the next portion of the agenda, did you want to have opportunity for public comment on the previous portion, or you want to do it all at the end?
Actually, thank you so much. I don't have any cards, so is there anyone that would like to speak on the previous report that didn't get a chance to submit a yellow card? You can go ahead and come up. Nope. See none? Okay, we will move on. And if you would like to speak, you can go ahead and fill out a card, or you can just come on up and we'll take care of you.
Great. So now, James Sung, Deputy Director in our Building Vision, is going to give us an update on the ADU program.
Thank you, Rosalyn. Good morning. ADU demand has continued to be strong, and our permit center has done an amazing job to keeping up with the demand. In 2019, as you can see from the diagram, the development services partners have doubled the numbers of permits issued from 2018. In addition to relaxing the ADU ordinance, as you can see with the 3-star milestones, we have assigned dedicated staff, created ADU Tuesday and express intake appointments, and created a universal checklist, ADU ally, and pre-approved master plans to allow more and quick permit process. We expect even more ADU applications in 2020 with the new December 2019 zoning updates that approved by council. Also, there was some question about seeing data on the ADU permits broken down by detached, attached, and garage conversion. And in 2019, out of 416 permits, there was about 40%, roughly, That is 166 permits were related to a garage conversion, and 184 permits were detached, and 66 permits were attached. Next slide, please. In addition to the demand for ADUs, we are focused on the quality of ease of use for our permitting process. This diagram shows the number of ADU permits issued within 2 review cycles based on the quarter that they were issued in. This performance measure identifies how seamlessly customers proceed through our process and how much rework our staff needs to spend on each ADU. In this diagram, we show the improvements we have made to our process over the past year. Our improvements have focused on providing better information to customers upfront so they do better job first and second time. And also, ADU Ally and staff focus on providing a complete and comprehensive comments helped make the process much easier for everyone. We expect the enhancement we have made to start to show real progress by next quarter. We are targeting to get this number up to 65%, as previously mentioned. Next slide. Finally, in keeping up with our efforts to reduce rework and save time for the customer and staff, we have developed an ADU inspection checklist. This inspection checklist has a condensed most common issues we find during our inspections, so customers are aware of common pitfalls that can occur during construction of an ADU. We have launched this form in November, and we expect to start seeing the impact of this improvement in the months to come as ADU get close to inspection. Our goal is to save customer from costly rework and construction and from inspectors having to visit the same property multiple times. That concludes this presentation.
Thank you so much. Questions, comments?
I
Councilmember Foley.
will move acceptance of the report.
Second.
And I have a question about the cycle of approval for a ADU. How long is a cycle? A review cycle?
A review cycle is if, for ADU Tuesday, that we have express appointments. So one cycle will occur within 90 minutes. Then the comments are issued, and the customer will, up to them and how long they want to update the plans and come back to the city for another express appointments, and they will be done second cycle, which is also 90 minutes.
Okay, so I guess I need a clarification on the word cycle. Is cycle an appointment, a meeting, a opportunity to interface with us? What
So first cycle.
What defines a cycle?
Yeah, good question. First
So I
cycle.
can
would be-
understand the timing involved.
Right, so first cycle would be, for example, I just gave you express appointments that we
Yeah.
have. So that's one cycle when they see our staff. For other intake regular appointments, that will be when they submit the plans. Then we'll get to review the plan and issue the comments. There will be one cycle. So our goal for typical regular intake appointments is our goal is about 7 plus minus working days. And subsequent reviews will be also will have a same turnaround time.
Okay.
So after customer reviewing our comments and they resubmit, and there will be a second cycle. And our goal is to approve ADUs within second cycles, because for this type of work, if it exceeds second cycles, then we don't see that as very successful review from our part. Also, it measures how complete the customer are providing the information at first review. And also, our hope is that we'll address a comprehensive review from all partners to address the comments. So when they resubmit, that we'll have a complete information so we can approve.
So in the best circumstances, the customer is prepared, they go to ADU Tuesday. How long from start to finish in days? If everything is aligned and they have everything prepared and meet the checklist?
So I will just add, so for those customers who have used the checklist, they have all the documents prepared and everything is ready, so it is possible for our staff to issue the permit in the first cycle, so it is possible. So, and that's our goal, quite
Yeah.
frankly, right? And with the help of our ADU allies, so Sarah Schull, she's in the audience there. Her job is to really, to the extent that she can, get our customers fully prepared so they have all of the documents and all of the plans ready so that on the first cycle,
Okay.
that it's actually possible to get their permit issued.
Okay, that's great. That leads me to the next question about staffing, and I've asked you this before. Where do we stand on getting Sarah some help?
Sarah needs help, and we're getting Sarah help. So in the 2021 budget cycle, we are proposing several new positions to support the overall ADU program. We are requesting an additional ADU ally position to assist Sarah. In addition, we are requesting positions for plan review and for inspection. And that proposal will be moving forward this spring.
And as an interim, what can we do to help Sarah's workload? Because frankly, that's one concern I hear from our residents, is that she's overworked and they call and depend on her, and you're doing a fabulous job, but there's only so much one person can do with the workload that you have coming forth before you. So in an interim,
Yes.
what are we doing?
So in the interim, and I'll let James elaborate, but we, Sarah's supervisor and other staff are pulled from their assignments to the extent that they have time available to assist Sarah. And James, you may have other strategies that you're employing as well.
Right, and also this is where we actually need some help from our customers because we have a robust website information, and it has all the information that regarding ADU, how to start, how to go through the process, what will be the cost, even including the construction cost. So if they review those webpage information, they will get about 80–90% of what needs to be done. If they have that, they do their homework when they come in. ADU Ally can assist those other questions that they may have and go through the process easily. Right now, we have a single point of contact that kind of creates a little bottleneck, but we are trying to expand that to other staff as possible. But if you could continue to promote in your district and other City of San Jose community about go into webpage and look at the information, and that has all the information, that would definitely be helpful, and it will help us to move this process quicker and get it done sooner.
Great, thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you.
That's it.
Any other, Councilmember Perales?
On this slide that we have here, do you know the difference between the garage conversions and the detached or attached ADUs in regards to this same percentage?
The data that I was looking at earlier was total 2019. Out of 416 permits, 40% were work-related to garage conversion. For each quarter, I do not have the data with me at this point.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm curious, well, not how many, I'm curious more the percentage. So,
Overall, it's
reason why is-
40%.
but I mean the percentage of, in regards to this done within 2 reviews.
Oh,
Because I'm trying to determine, is it, right, faster, easier for garage conversions versus detached, or vice versa, or is there a similar, is there a similar mix?
well, another way to look at this is that the scope that we are getting is not just garage conversion, right? It's garage conversion plus alteration or addition to existing home. So when we get a detached garage or detached ADUs, it's not just standalone work. It's always combination of, while I'm doing this, let me also fix some other stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was it, thank you.
And then just a little bit of a plug, this work around ADUs is both valuable for those who have alternative dwelling units or want to have alternative dwelling units. It's also valuable for hopefully you and us as we learn how we want to work around process improvements. So that last slide, if you could just hang on it for just a second, you see, second to last, sorry, penultimate, there we go. You see, okay, we're measuring our performance, in this case, an ease of use performance and a speed performance. And then, okay, we're putting these inputs against it. What's the change? right? And so we're gonna have this level of discipline increasingly around inspections, around dwelling units, around CEQA, and be coming back to you with a regular and consistent set of measures around speed, throughput, ease of use. What do we apply against it, and what was the change or not? And that will mean sometimes we hit, sometimes we miss, but we want to be increasingly data-driven in the way we discuss this with you. So this kind of conversation is exactly the one that we're hoping is useful to you. It's certainly very useful to us. And looking at things like disaggregating and seeing which stream is easier, detached or the attached, and understanding the nuances is exactly the kind of depth you'll see us going into. So I guess one of the things I would ask for you in terms of feedback is if these ways of presenting things are useful to you, or what we need to change so that you can be making the kind of decisions you need to make on the broader policy and budget front as we go forward. Because we're trying to make this a two-faced tool, not in the bad way, but in the good way in terms of looking up toward the policy and then also looking down toward the operations. And bringing you the people who are doing the real work to talk about it, rather than someone like me who just might be waving my hands around a little bit. So I just wanted to give that added gloss onto it.
Thanks.
It'll be interesting the next time that we meet, because by then, the amnesty program will have gone into full effect.
Yes, we are launching the amnesty program on Tuesday, next week.
Oh, and,
So we
it'll be-
intend to bring an update on how that program is going in the next meeting in April.
Yeah. So what matrix will they look similar, the matrix, what are we going to be measuring? Because these will be ADUs that are already out there, garage conversions or extensions of the houses that are already out there, right? So what are we going to be measuring?
So, first, as we launch the amnesty program, it's going to be about volume, right? Because we want as many people as possible to take advantage of the amnesty program, because the goal is to get unpermitted units legalized.
Permitted.
So volume's going to be important. And then obviously we can track in terms of if these units are garage conversions or if they're detached, so we can provide that data as well.
Okay. And so I know that we discussed it on the Tuesday when the issue came up on the agenda, to make sure that we're as, how do I put this, as non-threatening as possible, because it's a delicate matter. Some folks have been running their ADU forever. They've had it, they bought their house with it. It slowly became an ADU, went from storage to transition to suddenly a full-fledged ADU. And so, do we have already all that literature in multiple languages that our offices could start using? I imagine that I have quite a number of them. In fact, I can kind of already envision some of those where they are, and I'm eager to get that information out to our folks and get them on board and be able to assure them that their safety and well-being of their families, as well as whoever's occupying the ADU, is safe. And that's our paramount concern.
So I'm a member of the team that's working on the amnesty program. It's a wonderful point. We are, I think, our target for going live on Tuesday. Many of the materials and the content, I think we finalized, at least content-wise, yesterday. It's going to translation services today to be live for next Tuesday. So I don't want to give an update for our communications manager, but that was our original target, so that's what we're hoping to do. So give credit to James, I think, staying up pretty late yesterday, getting that finalized.
Okay.
And to your other point, and to build on what Rosalind was saying, volume is going to be important for us through the different stages of the process. ADU amnesty is designed to be a different process from our regular amnesty track. So it's a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison. And the reason for that is the upfront steps that we'll have in that process that really gives us understanding how many phone calls are we getting in that are interested but aren't necessarily saying where their location is. And do those matriculate into actual inspections that we help them get to the next stage. So we want to measure each of those steps really before we actually move into something that would be more about performance of the process. So we start to understand where are people falling off and what can we do to improve, because maybe they're afraid of moving past a certain step in the process. So that's really going to be our immediate focus, and what we hope to bring back in 3 months is really quantity of, and the volume, as Rosalind said, of at those different stages.
And I would just add, so another factor we think for these customers is going to be costs, right? Construction costs. So helping them determine what needs to be done to meet the code in order to get the unit legalized. And that's really the importance of having this third-party consultant on board to assist these customers even before they make the decision to apply for the amnesty program, to make sure they have all the information, particularly around construction costs, so they know, how much they're going to invest before they actually make the ADU application.
It would be nice to have, some sort of an info sheet, I don't know how it would be phrased, but, kind of like the pros and the cons of going through this. In other words, what are the benefits to you? Because remember, some of these folks have had this probably for the last 10 years, 20 years, maybe more, I don't know, and they've never had a problem. So their mindset's going to be, why should I, right? Our interest comes from a kind of a bureaucratic place, right? We're thinking of all we're checking off our list. We want to make sure people are safe primarily. We want to make sure it's legal. So we're going down our list. They're coming from a very, they're not checking off a list. They're just living their lives. So how do we compel them? And so an info memo is not compelling. What is compelling is, what do I get out of this?
Yeah.
Why would I want to do it, right?
Right.
So here are the pros and cons, Ms. Garcia. The pros and cons is that if you ever want to sell your house, the likelihood is that you may not be able to. You may have to tear it down first, because this doesn't add value to you, right? Am I right?
Well,
In terms of legal.
yes, it's a disclosure item.
Yes,
So
it's a disclosure item.
yeah, they disclose that it's not
considered
conforming,
part of
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
And
not part of-
you're right, it adds no value. And in fact, a lender for the purchaser may say that it takes away value and they don't want to do the loan,
Yeah,
depending on the condition of
exactly.
it. So
Families
it
don't
could
know
affect-
that.
yeah.
Families don't know that.
Right.
The other is, some may say, it's going to raise my taxes. And so you should have a tax implication on there and say, it doesn't really raise your taxes. It only raises your taxes for that portion of the house.
Property taxes.
Property
Yeah.
tax, yeah. The other is, at the end of the day, we want to make sure you're safe, because statistically, these are what we've seen. You have been safe so far, but these are the deaths or the accidents that we've seen. We want to make sure, because there's always suspicion of government. You're going to gouge me for money, blah, 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 blah. You know this, right? So those are the pros, right? The cons are, when the amnesty program goes away, if it goes away, you don't want to be fined. You don't want to have an accident. You want to one day sell your house. You want to blah, blah, blah. So that's more compelling than a memo, right? It would compel Doña Maria to let me think about this. Versus, the city of San Jose was so awesome. They were progressive and they thought about this amnesty program. We should take advantage of it. I've been doing just fine for 30 years. Chuck it. It's just a thought.
No, I think that's a very good point. So my mind is here thinking that in terms of the information that we get out, helping Sarah get information out in term, to your very point, what's the benefit to the customer to legalize your unit. So highlighting those points, I think it's going to be very important to encourage customers to apply.
And if I may add, our self-assessment checklist does have some pros and cons and what you're getting into. So a homeowner can actually go through those items and intellectually perceive, is this the right thing for my unpermitted ADU? So we're hoping that they can perceive that from our self-assessment checklist.
Sometimes we need help making the connections.
Yeah.
And I always like to add cartoons. A few little graphics.
If I may just add one little thought about that, I really love the idea on creating something that shows a benefit for getting this work done, because in the end, we really want their units to be safe, and they may not be safe from an electrical standpoint, from a plumbing standpoint, from lots of different things, may affect the
roof.
safety, roof, whatever. But I'm wondering if there is a way to reach out to the Realtor community that they might be interested in working with us with the materials to help craft a message that then they can use with their clients, or maybe even have workshops with the Realtors that would enable them to open a conversation with people about what it would mean to convert this illegal unit and how that will help them. So just a partnership or something that we might want to reach out to the Realtors and see if they might be interested in helping along the way.
Great idea. And actually, when the amnesty program came to council, I believe that was January 7th, the Santa Clara County Association of Realtors actually provided a very strong letter of support. So thank you. We will definitely reach out to them.
Good.
They could be a potential great partner.
Okay, wonderful. And when all of that gets said and done, if you could provide us with a soft copy of the info, it allows us to put it in our newsletter, and it allows us to post it on our Facebook, but we have an extensive mail list that allows us to reach out to our own constituency and be able to help you with the outreach.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So do I have anyone who's interested in speaking on this item? Thank you so much. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposing this wonderful item? Doesn't sound like it. So that passes unanimously. Thank you so much. We will move on to our last and final item. It's the housing production numbers update. Take it away, Rosalind. Nope? Oh, it does.
Jared Ferguson, Housing Catalyst with the
You
Office of
surprised me.
Economic Development. With Rachel Vanderveen, Deputy Director of the Housing Department. So here to provide the latest update on the housing production. Update today covers all of 2018 and 2019. So 2 years into the city's goal of facilitating development of 25,000 housing units by 2023.
Thank you.
Before you in the first slide, you see the 4 columns that really represent the 4 key stages that the city, as part of the city, the 4 stages that the city plays a key role in the development process. As you can see, we're making steady progress, but there's still clearly more work to be done. I think the important aspect to keep an eye on as we continue to move forward is that we should see progress in all columns, meaning that as we make capacity available through policy work and we see units receiving planning approval, that those units also continue through the process and obtain building permits and receive occupancy. And I wanted to also note that we're working on some additional visualizations to show the progress towards the 25,000 housing unit goal, and we plan to have those for you at the next ad hoc committee meeting for this report. And then the next slide, just to highlight on the market rate side, since our last update, we saw the approval of the Garden Gate Tower, which is a 27-story residential high-rise at the corner of Reed and South First Street, and As a reminder, that received approval for 290 units or 793 co-living bedrooms or units. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel to provide some additional updates.
All right, good morning. Next slide, thank you. All right, so we are excited to share with you news that these 3 developments have all been entitled and pretty much, well, December 11 through this past Tuesday, I guess. So anyway, very, very recently, these 3 have all been entitled. And they're all affordable, and what we're really excited about is each one is actually a first under a different policy and different state law. So I want to kind of walk you through that because, and actually I want to just take a moment just to recognize every time we do a first, it just takes a little bit more work. So I just want to specifically recognize Ruth Cueto, who in the planning department, who was project managing all 3 of these and was able to somehow figure out how to do things the first time. We also received strong support from the attorney's office. It was just a lot of like documentation that had to happen that we had never done before. So we really, really appreciate the partnership that we have with everyone here because it really took a village to get these across the goal line. So first I want to highlight the Alum Rock Family Project. This is in District 5, and this one is a first because it was the first under SB 35, which is a state law that streamlines the development process for affordable housing. And Affirmed Housing is a developer. They were able to submit their application, work very closely with Ruth and the team to essentially meet a set of criteria. So if they were able to demonstrate that their project fit into the criteria that was zoned for that property, then they could move forward without going through the CEQA process. So that was an important process, and it took a little bit of back and forth, but they were able to accomplish it. And then also, 750 West San Carlos was a first AB 2162 development, which is another state law that is very similar criteria. However, for AB 2162, at least 25% of the development must be dedicated to permanent supportive housing. So in the West San Carlos project, actually 50% is dedicated to permanent supportive housing, so they met and exceeded that requirement. And again, we're able to demonstrate that the project could meet the requirements of the city for what could be developed there, and therefore we're able to move forward with an expedited process without going through the whole CEQA process. I would say, in my opinion, that West San Carlos is probably the project that gained the most speed from this, just because Alum Rock was the very, very first, and it took a little bit longer, and West San Carlos was kind of like right behind them. Again, in my, in Rachel's opinion, I think West San Carlos probably picked up at least 6 months on their deal through using this because they went fast. And I think what's great is that these have now opened doors to other projects to pick up that kind of speed, which as you all know is just really critical for development. To pick up that much time is really invaluable. And then I want to highlight the Blossom Hill Senior Housing Project, which was approved by the Planning Commission and entitled on December 11th. This one was the first under a city policy, where we have a city policy that basically says if there's an 100% affordable project that wants to go ahead of an urban village plan, they are allowed to do so. So Blossom Hill applied under that policy and is the first in San Jose to be approved. And so we're really looking forward to seeing that project come forward as well. Next slide. So I wanted to also include information this time. Last time we presented this information, one of the issues that was raised was that we are counting towards a goal, and we take many steps forward on affordable housing, like the last slide just showed. Those are big steps forward. But there are also these steps back at the same time where during this time period, there are some affordable units that are lost. And we don't want to just lose sight of that. We wanted to account for that and have that be part of our discussion. So really, there are two different ways that an affordable unit can be lost today. So the first is an affordability restriction actually expires. So that sounds like, how could that even happen, right? These restrictions are in place for as long as we possibly can make them. However, about 30 years ago, there was affordable housing that was happening, and so the housing department itself just celebrated its 30th anniversary. So, so what's happening is some of these restrictions are expiring. So what we wanted to do is just show you that over the same period that we're tracking, which is January 2018 through the end of 2019. San Jose lost 47 units through expiring affordability restrictions. And then there's another form of loss, which is market rate apartments that are removing themselves from the market under the Ellis Act. And what's happening in San Jose is that actually all of these cases are for redevelopment purposes. So on the production side, you're going to see a pickup of apartments, but what we wanted to do was also capture the fact that some were lost at the same time. So during this period, 19 have been lost through under the Ellis Act, and for a total of 66 units lost. And I also wanted to point out that the reserve apartments are not included. There were 215 units that were removed with the reserve apartments, but those happened prior to the time period that we're tracking. But I wanted to just point that out because that one building, it was significant, a significant number. So, so with that, that concludes our report, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you so much for that. Councilmember Esparza?
Yeah, can you go to the slide that has the pipeline? And first, I'd also like to add that in the future, I'd appreciate getting the whole presentation ahead of time. We only got one slide, and also it was not, the complete presentation was not Granicus. So on the housing production slide, I had a question, and I don't know whether it's for housing or for planning, but really seeing that for 2019, we had 0 permits on the affordable end. Oh, see, I'm showing 0.
So we updated the slide for
Oh,
the presentation today, so
So we
we
didn't get that
apologize.
ahead of time. Again,
Okay.
so this is back to the last minute stuff that we get. So our old version, the version that so it has this. So I wanted to, so it's not 0, but we had 134 affordable permits in 2019. And it's low. Like, how are we going to, then we look at the occupancy, and it's still low. What can we talk, I'm interested, I guess, in hearing more about the pipeline. Like, are projects not being built, or are they just taking longer to be built? Where is that coming from?
I can speak, well, and I can specifically speak to the affordable, which is the area that you were just pointing out. So, so the development process is a long process, and with affordable housing, there's also this whole financing component that takes time. So even when it's entitled, then once they're entitled, then they need to go get all their financing. So it adds a little bit more time to the process. So in 2018, we issued a $100 million NOFA, and the $100 million NOFA actually identified 12 projects that we said, hey, let's go. Let's move forward. We have funding for you, and let's get going. And so, so under that NOFA, we now have 5 projects that have received funding commitments from the City Council, and Blossom Hill is the one that's coming right behind them. That would be number 6 out of those 12. And so that, basically, we have identified projects, they're moving through entitlement, that's where they are. And then, once they have entitlements, they will go and seek their financing, and then they'll issue building permits. So, so what you see in the building permits number is, actually, those are developments that were funded in 2016 by the city council. So there's just a lag, and we had we just didn't have very much money for many years. And so you can still see the lull in affordable housing, but we're really hoping that that it's going to be picking up. And I think you can see it showing up in the entitlement number.
Because I guess, we've had market rate developers come before us with expressing the same frustrations that, there's this sort of funneling down, we're losing projects, right? We're losing developments for whatever reason. They're stalling, they're waiting. And I don't know whether that's market conditions or something else, but with the affordable, it's different because it's financed differently. And because those numbers are so small, it's a big concern because we are in a crisis. And the other thing that I'd like to ask, that in the future, when we get affordable numbers presented to us, that we have a breakdown of what type of affordable at what rate. I think that would be very helpful as well. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Councilmember Perales?
On the last slide you had with the affordable units lost, there are many circumstances where we will have a affordability restriction expiring, but yet they will re-up it, correct? So,
Yes.
and so these are completely sort of expiring. They chose not to. There are also, my understanding, could be circumstances where the affordability restriction expires, but the property owner could maintain the apartments at affordable rates. Sort of, I know that at least that's what Chuck Davidson, who we just, recognized, has done. And so, do we have any data in that regard, or is that just too hard to be able to denote? Because in this case, it's just the affordability restriction is expiring, and or is there something that they would do if somebody says, hey, no, we actually want to maintain these, but yet we don't want to, the restriction could be removed, but yet the levels of affordability can be maintained. Do we know that?
Yeah, I definitely know what you're referring to. So a lot of times it has to do with the ownership specifically. So it somewhat depends on what their strategy is. So there may be an owner that actually sees that there's an upcoming expiring restriction, purchases the property, and then plans to bring them all to market as their strategy. So we've seen that happen, and they go through all of the right processes of notifying tenants, and there's just a whole process, and they can do that. So that is something that we have seen happen. There are other cases where the ownership is more mission oriented and really is attached to the tenants and feels like the building itself is providing a real value to the community, and they may continue to have affordable rents, or maybe, and they can even just choose to bring them up a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? Like more than maybe the restriction would allow, but still not up to what market is, because that it could be a long ways to go. And so I would just say it would just, for us to really fully understand, I mean, we probably have to just do audits and see what they're renting at. That's the only way we can really confirm. But generally, we can get a sense from the ownership and what their intentions are. So
That would be, if we're going to continue to kind of follow this trend, I think it would be at least helpful to try to figure that out. And if it's hard to determine, the reality without an audit or something, I'm not necessarily saying we go that far, right? And I understand that it would be difficult. But at least I think we can start with intent and kind of try to understand, are these 47 units, for instance, completely going to be removed, from the affordable market because they're going to, bring them up to market rate or redevelop them? Or do we have a owner right, that is actually saying, actually, we'd like to keep it at some level of affordability, and even though we don't have the restriction to do so anymore, it would be nice to know that, at least to get an idea, so, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I agree.
Okay. Well done. Any questions or concerns from the audience? Good morning. Is it still morning? Yeah, it is.
Morning, everyone.
How are you?
Dennis Martin speaking on behalf of BIA Bay Area. I wonder if you could put up the housing production slide again. And I think it's useful for us to maybe take a look at our ranking with other cities, especially those we may be competing with for jobs, for economic growth, et cetera. So in cities, I was looking at a report, in cities over 50,000 population, San Jose ranks 9th in population, units produced, and that's raw units produced, 35th. In units per capita, 27.4 per capita. Again, in cities, that's for a population of 10,000. Our ranking there is 306th. So we are ranked behind, in fact, our gross production units, production of units ranks behind Los Angeles at 16,000, San Francisco at over 5,000, San Diego over 4,500, Oakland over 3,800. But we also rank behind cities, now this is for 2018, that number up there. We rank behind Austin, Houston, Fort Worth, cities in the Midwest, Chicago, but also Seattle, Portland, and even cities like Henderson, Nevada, and Columbus, Ohio. So this is a bad report for 2019. Our numbers have dropped. We should be producing twice as much or maybe more. We're losing a competitive edge here with regards to housing, and this city's approach to permitting and building housing clearly is broken. I know you're all spending much time trying to fix it, but these are policy decisions at the highest level, and you should be paying attention to those, because we are losing the battle. When we talk about affordable housing, what's the reason why housing is unaffordable in the Bay Area, in San Jose? It's right there in those numbers. So please, focus on the ball. There's so many, we're arguing over 47 units. But we should be really focused on the fact that we have lost production year over year. And the mayor's goal notwithstanding, there should be other goals. You should be looking at cities like Austin and Seattle and Portland and seeing what they're doing and why we are losing out in the competitive edge to those cities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other member of the audience who'd like to speak? Thank you so much for the report. And as Councilmember Esparza had mentioned, if we could please make sure to get the full report before we actually come to committee, it allows us to dissect the information with advance notice and be able to just have a more robust conversation. Any other comments from my colleagues? And we do have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. That passes unanimously, and we are done for the day. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate your time.